It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected. Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
iOS, it's Only Sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Wall. Welcome to the podcast highlights package of today's show. More fallout and feedback from the All Blacks loss to South Africa again. Murray Mexted on the show again with more words of wisdom from the All Black legend. We went to Australia to just give it to our favourite former Wallaby punching bag, that is Peter FitzSimons. Talked about the NFL. And our man HK Wong at FB Garbage Time, that's his Twitter handle, that's his podcast, joined us live during the Jets versus the 49ers match, which was wrapping up round one. No cricket yesterday between Afghanistan and New Zealand. It was bright and sunny. However, the field waterlogged. How come? And are we going to get any cricket today? Well, you'll know that answer by the time you listen to this podcast. Rahul Patil was on the show. We gave 5 very good, believable reasons as to why Addo-Carr, that's Josh from the Canterbury Bulldogs, is not guilty of any offences at all, despite cocaine allegedly being found in his bloodstream. I blame the media, as you always should when any NRL player gets in trouble. Played what is more chance of happening, did the Tide 5, all of that on the program. Squeeze as much into this highlights package for you. But we begin the show the same way every day, which is tablets in hand. I say gather my flock, it's time for a sermon. An open letter to us All Black fans. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Dear All Black fans, it's okay to be grumpy. As an All Black fan, you should be. We should never be happy losing. And I'm not saying get all bitter and twisted about it or fail to acknowledge the superiority of an opponent. And right now, the Springboks are excellent. They are what we were from 2011 through to 2016. Totally dominant. They win matches you think they'll lose. Their guys are used to winning. They demand they keep winning. They are as good as any champion All Black side that we have ever seen. And the only way back to that level for us is to never accept being below that level. So yes, we should be mad about it. And no, we shouldn't be happy with it. And yes, it's important we feel bad about it. Because it's meant to hurt. That's the point. That then means that you don't ever want that. And you only want to get back to the level that they are at. Which is winning these games. Which is what we're about and only what we're about. And only what we've ever been about. Winning. The All Blacks. That's why we play. We play to win. We don't play to play. We play to win. And the day that we lose that, we aren't the All Blacks. The day that we lose that, we just become part of the pack. We become ordinary. And there's no bigger insult to the All Blacks than being called that.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
I'll start off with cricket, Test cricket. It's back for New Zealand. We're back playing. Well, actually, no, we're not, because weather got in the way. Yes, the opening day of the one-off test between the Black Caps and Afghanistan was abandoned without a ball being bowled. Wasn't because it was raining during the day, but there'd been rain beforehand, and the drainage at the facility at the stadium is apparently appalling. It's a stadium in India. Name of the town escapes me, but anyway, hopefully play gets underway today. It's going to be a shortened test, 4 days, all going to plan. But there is poor weather forecast over the coming days, so we'll wait and see. Sticking with cricket, Sri Lanka have scored a big upset win in England's backyard, winning the third and final test by 8 wickets, though it didn't really matter. The third test was a dead rubber. England had sewn up the series, winning the first 2 matchups. America's Cup sailing, French challenger Orient Express Racing have become the first team eliminated from the 37th regatta in Barcelona after ending the double round robins at the foot of the leaderboard. Team New Zealand, though, have also wrapped up their racing, but of course they weren't really part of this, and they have the cup match to come. Their next competitive race is a little over a month away from now. That's when the main event gets underway. New Zealand cyclist Aaron Gate will finally get to ride at the highest level of pro cycling, signing with the Astana, Kazakhstan UCI World Tour road team. Great news for Aaron Gate. We're big fans of his. He hopes to make a start at the Tour Down Under in Adelaide in the new year. It's a bit of a quiet news day, so I'll talk about some NFL. First off, we have a game going on right now between the 49ers and the Jets. The 49ers just scored a touchdown, 13 points to 7. They are up, but the Jets, on their third drive, I think it was, looks damn good. when they got their touchdown, the first of
Yeah,
the
they
game.
can't tackle though.
No, they can't.
Oh,
They're struggling to run the ball as well.
Oh, really?
What?
Oh, they are the Jets then.
Well, yes.
Oh, just for a second there, we thought after Aaron Rodgers, we thought they'd drive. We thought, hang on a second. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. There's enough evidence to suggest they're still the
steady
Jets.
on. They've shored up that offensive line. It's very good. And here's a story just to wrap things up, Martin. The only reason I'm reading it is that it involves your beloved Commanders. You guys have released your kicker, Cade York. He missed 2 kicks yesterday.
I love
and
this
that
about
lost
the
to the
NFL.
Buccaneers.
I love
After
this
one
about
game,
the NFL. Yeah,
he's gone.
Yeah, you're gone. Yeah,
he's gone.
Yeah, you get one chance, and then you might get a second chance. And if you blow that second chance, there is no third chance.
Yeah, just quickly with the cricket and that test between us and Afghanistan, just so I actually get this right. Where we are playing, I thought it was the UAE. I said this yesterday. It's in India.
Yeah.
It's in Noida.
Yeah.
Greater Noida.
Yeah.
That's the place that we're
Northern
playing
India,
at.
yeah.
The Shahid Vijay Singh Pathik Sports Complex.
Devlin,
That is a disgusting act.
the platform.
Is it okay for the All Blacks to lose? Have we dulled ourselves into accepting? It's not mediocrity, but it's a lowering of the bar of All Blacks standards. 15 losses now in the last 5 years. We haven't been the best team in the world since England thrashed us in that semi-final in Tokyo. And it was a thrashing. I was there live watching that. It was one of the most embarrassing All Black losses ever. We were just absolutely towed up by then. Since then, 15 losses and 2 draws. That's 17 fails for the All Blacks. And each time it happens, you kind of get a little bit more used to it. I grew up in a generation where we refused to lose, where the All Blacks, losing was one of the greatest motivators for when they went onto the field to help them win. Murray Mexted is off that generation. Mex, do we ever accept losing? I hear a lot, I read a lot about, oh, look, this All Black team is this, and we need this, and we've got time, and we have to do this. And, 3 losses and 7 tests this year, and the Fiji one was just a training exercise. A couple of parts to this question, though. I mean, are we meant to sit back as fans now and go, okay, it's okay for the All Blacks to lose 2, 3, 4 test matches a year because we're rebuilding and all of these other excuses? Is that valid?
No, well, you're asking the wrong person here because obviously my opinion is coloured by the fact that, I expect the All Black team to win every game. I'm sure as hell during my era, my period playing for the All Blacks, I know we were expected to win every game. And in fact, as you know, you look over 100 years of All Black performances, and when you win 80% of the time for 100 years, you've got to say you get used to winning. And, and that was, in the old days, it was the fear of losing that used to drive us. Do you want to be part of a team an All Black team that loses? No, thank you. So, I expect them all to win. So when I heard this test series in South Africa, 2 tests, I thought, firstly, fantastic. 2 best teams in the world meeting on South African soil, it'll be fantastic. But it brings in a whole lot of other complexities. And, we spoke about altitude, and people underrate altitude. You say, why did the All Black team fade in the last 10 minutes in Johannesburg? Well, last 15 minutes. Well, I reckon it was altitude. And our second tier that came on maybe weren't as good as our first tier. In Cape Town, I reckon it was size. We just physically weren't big enough to continue winning our share of possession, or more than our share of possession, and controlling the match. We had no control over that match. I thought we did really well in Cape Town, actually, to be in the race. But, the whole game is influenced, isn't it, by the number of people that are set up, the number of penalties. There is certainly some areas that the game needs to be looked at and freed up a certain amount. And I think we've spoken about before about if you play Super Rugby where Stanzar is saying, let's be liberal, let the game flow, let the game be a success and interesting and enjoyable for people to play and to watch. And you do that, and then you go into a international window and you have British referees or European referees that are under the microscope all the time and used to blowing the whistle all the time and dominating the game. Gone are the days that we can't remember who the referee was in the game. And I'd love to see that come back. But anyway, that's just my personal opinion, and I do expect the All Blacks to win each game. And when I couldn't say to you on air, I think the Springboks will win in Johannesburg. I said the Springboks will go in as favourites, but will win in Cape Town. And I was hoping like hell we were going to win in Cape Town, but when I saw the team announced, I thought the chances were unlikely.
Are we a better side than we were last year? Like, if you look back at that quarter-final performance against Ireland, which was just, you were there, a magnificent performance from the All Blacks. Are we as good as that team? Is this team right now as good as even that side was?
Oh, I think that's a hard question to answer, Marty. I think that, a few years ago, under Graham Henry, and I thought Steve Hansen probably was the guy that drove it most, they decided that there should be continuity in selection of the All Black coaches, that there need to be, to get a pattern and to have guys coming through that knew about what happened in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. And I think it was a really, really good sort of, I think it was Steve Hansen, or it may have been Graham Henry, one of them, it doesn't matter, or both of them maybe. I thought it was a great idea, a great concept. Now that flew apart, didn't it, recently with NZRU, and they decided after, because Ian Foster had lost a couple, and they decided that there were a few people putting up their hand that weren't in the system. And I don't know. NZR have to take a clip on the chin here. In my opinion, they've made some questionable decisions in the last few years. And one of them was naming the new All Black coach before the Rugby World Cup, which I think was disgraceful to do that. And it was tragic for Ian Foster to have to deal with that scenario. And I thought we did bloody well to get through to the final, and with an ounce of luck we could have won the final. But I just think that is a question. So my point is there's been no continuity, it's been a change, and now Razor has to learn a whole lot in a very short period of time. And I reckon he's learned a hell of a lot in a very short period of time. One of the areas that he should have learned in, and there's no other coaches in his coaching lineup, although there seems to be a coach for everything. There's no coach for loose forwards, and none of those guys played loose forwards except for him. And he played 6, 7 and 8 on a regular basis. So I'm not sure whether his vision is clouded or not. But, there are those 3 different roles. The 7 and the 8 these days are quite similar, actually. But the blindside flank is completely different. When I look at the lineup, I guess you could say Finau wasn't a success when he came on, and so he had no option but to pick Satiti, who at 21 years of age, going into a match like that, it's not the time to find out that the guy's only 6'1". They did call him in the line-out. I think I read in the paper 3 times, but I only saw once, and I look at line-outs pretty carefully. And the opposition won the ball on that occasion. But I don't think it's a time to blood players, especially players who are undersized in that position. So I think it's a shame. But who else could we pick?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Wanted to make changes, and there were injuries, weren't there? Blackadder was injured, for example. Papali was injured. So, and he tried Finau. There was Jacobson or Satiti, and he went with Satiti, and Jacobson came on. But, I think there's a learning curve for Razor here on almost every position. So the long answer to your question is that I don't think we are any better than we were 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, we're probably not quite as good. And we need to build depth, and that's what he's starting to do. And he's sort of finding out who his players are still. So I guess you've got to put up with that in many respects. There will be cycles, won't there, that after a Rugby World Cup often there'll be a new coach appointed. And then he's got a couple of years to experiment with certain players and find out who the guys are that can do the business and bring home the World Cup. But it was interesting to see that the Springboks have never had that, or hardly ever had that Freedom Cup.
Yeah, I found that great stat, isn't it? 15 years they hadn't had it, because you've got to win both tests in a year. So it just goes to show how successful we have been against them. up until recently.
Well, that's right. And it also, to me, it's very evident that the Springbok team is on a high at the moment, and so are their spectators, and so is their culture.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Top 5 time, ladies and gentlemen, as the news is just breaking, Lachlan, that Josh Addo-Carr has what? This is dramatic out of Australia.
You can't write this stuff. Josh Addo-Carr stands himself down.
No.
For this weekend's clash against
Why?
Manly.
He's innocent.
He didn't do anything wrong.
He didn't do anything wrong apart from being tested positive for drugs, but he told Phil Gould that he wasn't positive. The cops got it wrong, he said. Maybe he lied.
What a mature thing to do, to say, club doggies, don't worry. You don't have to worry about maybe having to stand me down, even though I'm innocent. I'm going to stand
myself down because that's how innocent
I'm
I
an
am.
upstanding citizen.
There's no way that I want to disrupt preparation. So this is it. On the Thursday night, Josh Addo-Carr is at the team hotel. Late at night, he decides to leave the hotel without telling team management or anyone else and get in his car and drive off because he needs to find a phone charger, said team management in their official statement after he was roadside tested positive for cocaine. See, because that's what normal people do. So, you know, when you're staying at a hotel and you can't find your phone charger and you've got 28 teammates and another 20 management people and you've got reception downstairs, what you do is you sneak out when no one's looking, get in your car. You don't go down to the dairy down the road or the servo or wherever else is close. You don't tell anyone what you're doing. You aren't going to visit your dealer. That's not what you're doing to get stuff organised for the last match of the competition for your teammates. You're not doing that because that's just, I tell you what, that is just insulting to even assume or accuse anyone of doing that. What you do is you get in your car and you drive off to find a phone charger. Because you don't have a phone charger in your car either. And there's no way reception will help you out in that kind of thing, will you? I mean, I just can't believe that no one believes Josh Addo-Carr on this. I just find, why are people pointing the finger at Josh Addo-Carr and why are they accusing him of something that he clearly didn't do? The top 5 people, believable excuses and reasons as to why Josh Addo-Carr is innocent, goddammit. And at number 5, just like Richard Gasquet, the tennis player, he kissed a girl at a nightclub who had cocaine on her lips and therefore he tested positive. That's fair and reasonable, Lachlan. He drove out looking for a phone charger. There was a girl outside the hotel who said, Josh, a selfie, if you please. He stopped, wound the window down, kissed her, and she just happened to be a big coke. Yeah. Number 4. Just like Valentine Holmes, it's just jokes. This is not really jokes. You know, Valentine Holmes with the powder in the bag, he was waving in front of the Instagram kid, just jokes. Just like Kalen Ponga and his mate who were in the toilet together at a bar in a hotel. He was set up by the media. Just like Latrell Mitchell, who didn't know why he had a straw in his hand and why his face was near a plate with a whole lot of powder cut into lines that looked like drugs ready to snort, and he didn't know it was the person who took the photo's fault. Remember that guy who no one had ever seen or heard of before, who gate crashed the Hawke's Bay Ranfurly Shield party, broke the shield, then lined up a whole lot of drugs to snort, and then without anyone ever being able to identify what he looked like or who he was, he just suddenly vanished into thin air? Well, that guy now lives in Sydney and he hangs out at the Canterbury Rugby League Club, and it was him that did the big boy and took my bike and he ran away, Lachlan. And finally, the number 1 reason why Josh Addo-Carr, and all his excuses are believable, despite the fact he's just stood himself down, the police are lying. You think we got it tough, rugby fans in New Zealand? The All Blacks losing to South Africa? And we ran them close, but we weren't good enough. I think most of us admit that. What about them Wallabies then? Last week, 20-19, won a series. Well, it was a hell of a win, even though they probably didn't deserve it, but you take it because that's international rugby. And then when you have a 20-3 lead in the second match against the Argies in Argentina, we're going to do the double over you, and it start unraveling, and then we're taking it right up the chutney, and that is the worst defeat that we have ever seen. Peter FitzSimons, who better to give it to than you? How are you doing?
your nation must be in mourning.
Oh,
eh?
yeah.
All Blacks.
Yeah.
Hang on. How many times, I'm just going, 3 carry 1 subtract 2 equals 4 defeats in a row? Is that right? That can't be. Is that some error?
Okay. I mean, you can add that to it. Look, it's actually 6 defeats in 8 matches, 4 in a row to South Africa, the world champions. How are you guys doing?
We're going pretty well. The sun's shining.
Yep.
We've got a beautiful nation. Economy's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
We're going very well in our brown and pleasant land, and the NRL funnels are going, coming along. And we had a big fundraiser the other day in rugby, and to honour Michael Hooper and Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, spoke very well. The only criticism he made, he said that Senator David Pocock had single-handedly destroyed the parliamentary rugby rugby competition. Apart from that.
Well, so hang on a sec. So what were you having a fundraiser to find a halfback, a first 5, a centre combination, a forward pack, some reserves, some players,
and a coach?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm joking. Joe Schmidt's done as good a job as can be done under the circumstances. What was it, a fortnight ago? Pretty good effort, all things considered, given that sergeant in the team, your mob in Wellington.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty good effort.
Yeah. Okay, but let's just park that for a second. What about the weekend? Because at 20-3, you were beating them twice in Argentina, and that was going to be a doubly pretty good effort.
Okay, being serious, what the hell went on there? How the hell does that happen? I mean, I hate to sound like an old, jaded footballer, but when it's going like that, at least start a fight. I mean, it was just unbelievable. 20-3, it's all happening.
Yep.
We're a long way ahead. Victory's beckoning, and then, I mean, without being unkind, half the mob turned into human turnstiles.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
They just kept going and going and going. The only good thing about it is, and I think maybe even you might reluctantly agree, it is a good thing to see Argentina, pushing towards the top tiers of rugby. They're a really new contender. They play wonderful rugby, and good on them. It's just a pity that it came at the expense of the Wallabies.
Look, I would probably be arguing against that, apart from the fact that they scored 4 tries and put 38 points on us in Wellington, and we can hardly talk because we have a brand new coach and we've lost 3 out of our 6 major test matches this year. So I guess the Bledisloe's come along at a good time, hasn't it, eh?
That probably has. I know this is you interviewing me and not me interviewing you, but I can't resist. That your All Black coach, I mean, he came with a hell of a resume. Great guy, unbelievable resume. What's gone wrong your end?
Well, look, we suffered the same thing as you, except just on a dramatically different scale. And in all seriousness, mate, when you look at past fantastic All Black sides, and most recently, say, between 2011 and 2016, Peter, you could look at our team and go, okay, pick a World 15. There's probably 10 black shirts in there, right? Okay, at the moment, you'd be lucky to get 1 or 2. Our playing stocks are just really low. Here's a stat for you. Since 2019, and we lost that semi-final to England, and we were belted that day, this All Black side, which is essentially the same group of players, has lost 15 test matches and drawn 2 in 5 years. That's an average of 3 a year we're losing. That is the worst run ever, statistically, of any All Black side. So, you can get whoever you want to coach the team, but right now, the truth is we don't actually have the world-class players that we think we have.
Which begs the next question. Structurally, how is it that New Zealand, which is awash in fabulous rugby players, playing brilliant, wonderful athleticism, playing rugby since they were 5, you've got a very strong competition, you've got great club competition, you've got great provincial competition.
Well, see, that's where that's where I've got to stop you. That's where I've got to stop you. No. This is all crumbled, mate. The castle is built on sand. The clubs are struggling. The NPC was called by the CEO not fit for purpose. Meanwhile, he's swanning over in South Africa, and now he's on a business class trip to London to talk to more people about talky things. Rugby is really suffering in this country. The playing numbers have dropped down. The women's game appears to have taken off, and they're actually getting growth. But as far as the men's, it needs serious work, and we have an administration that just seems to look the other way, and all they care about is TikTok, Instagram likes, and NZR subscriptions.
and where are the players? If they're not playing rugby, you say the numbers have dropped. Where are they going?
Well, a lot of young people these days, basketball is huge. Round ball football is huge. Obviously, rugby league is becoming more popular. But
is it really rugby league? Rugby league is becoming more popular in New Zealand?
Oh, definitely so. There's a real perception about that. I don't know whether that translates to playing numbers, but look, you have cycles, and at the moment, we've got guys who are good players and they're great Super Rugby players, but that doesn't make them world-class international players, which is what you need to be the world champions, which we aren't. Simple as that. I mean, we can sulk about it as much as we like, but, you've had wonderful periods in Australian rugby, and I go back, of course, obviously to around, 90 through to about 94, and then again from 98 through to about 2003, and, unfortunately, you haven't had a single patch since then.
With the tiny exception, I think they call it an Indian summer when everything's going to hell in a handcart, you have one burst where it actually works. In 2015 under Michael Checker, where we had the Wallabies, actually got to the World Cup final against all odds. I mean, we may have to do something desperate. We may have to. I just thought the other night, why don't we get Eddie Jones?
Go on, see this. Oh my God, Eddie Jones, mate.
Oh, jeez, wasn't that a disaster?
The Tight Five.
James Earl Jones has died. Lachlan, do you know who that guy is? Razors presser, your thoughts from that? The All Black loss. Will you ever accept the All Blacks losing, Lachlan? Will you? Tyreek Hill failed the attitude test. I don't know if you've been following this story, people. Miami Dolphins superstar wide receiver, the cheetah that they call him. He was arrested in the car park at the stadium yesterday before the game for failing the police attitude test. And now the Miami Dolphins wanting to drag that police department over the hot coals for the way that they treated him and put him in cuffs outside his car. Mark Robinson, a couple of years ago, was calling the All Blacks unacceptable. Now on LinkedIn, he just says he's thoroughly proud with the performance in South Africa. That is a reasonably big contrast change in attitude from the CEO. And Josh Addo-Carr, the NRL, the gift that just keeps on giving. A lot to say about that. Let's start with the Razors presser because we played those quotes just before 2 o'clock there. Are you happy with the answers from the coach? Look, I always like doing this a day or two later because after the event, I'm always just way too emotional after a loss, and I'm like, so when you kind of calm down a little bit and then you listen to those answers, replies to the questions, you happy with them?
For the most part, yeah. I liked those last two, and I liked his answers to them. I actually, for a long time, there's a couple of things. One, people are starting to get quite critical of Razor and how he tends to stumble over his words a little bit, and linking that with an idea that he doesn't know what he's doing. He's out of his depth. There's been a few texts in and around that. He's always talked like this. The only difference that we've noticed is that his answers are shorter and sharper. Mm-hmm. When he was coach of the Crusaders, because I did this for work when I was at NZME, I'd cut up the press conferences, he would really stumble and bumble around his words. Not being critical, maybe he isn't as illiterate, is that the word? Yeah. He isn't as good at speaking as other people. So
that's not a rule of qualification to get the job, though. Because if you remember, Steve Hansen wasn't great with the media either. He went under a lot of training. He's always been like that, so I don't like the fact that people are criticising him with that. Anyway, in terms of that press conference, I like some of the answers, but at the same time, I think some of the questions were weak and lame. There's so many questions that pop into my head when I hear them. I think, no, that's a great follow-up. No, ask that instead. I would have, when someone asked him, what did you think of Wallace Satiti, I would have followed up and said, why'd you bring him off? And also,
why did he come off?
Why did you play him at 6? Would you play him at 8 against Australia? Would you put him in his best position?
Actually, there was one moment, and it was a New Zealand journo, and I won't say who it was, because we know this person. They asked a question, and they said, you didn't bring Sam Derry off the bench. Racer said, oh, yeah, no, I didn't. And then they didn't follow up and say why. They just went, oh, okay.
Yeah, again, that's a failing from this side of the microphone, whoever is asking those questions. Mark Robinson, do you think that this is a change in attitude, that after losing to Ireland, unacceptable, he put out a press statement, which at the time was something that shocked us all because no CEO had ever publicly criticised the All Blacks like that, and now he's put out a post on LinkedIn. You want to read the post on LinkedIn? Honestly, people, it would just make you just get on and have a look. It's a 2-page epic about how he sat down, shook hands, had meetings, had drinks, had a meal, advanced talks, had talks, proposed talks, advanced the proposed talks. But the little bit at the end is congratulating the All Blacks on just a terrific team and management performance. That's quite a contrast, isn't it? 2 years ago, criticising the coach in public.
It's a big contrast, because you're right, at the time when it came out,
we were all shocked and surprised, mate.
It just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen.
I don't think they're totally comparable situations, though, because, trying to be the devil's advocate here, at the time, the All Blacks had lost 5 tests in 6. They just lost a home series to Ireland for the first time, lost a home test for the first time, and that was year number 3 out of 4 in the World Cup cycle, a year and a bit out from the World Cup. This is within a year after the last World Cup. So if this was 2026, and we were losing 5 tests in the space of 6, and Razor had been in charge for 2.5 years or so, then I
don't buy into this World Cup cycle. I don't ever want to buy into it. I'm with Mark Watson on this, mate. I don't want to be in a 4-year thing with the previous 3 years don't matter.
I agree, but that's the way the world has sort of moved. Because, okay, in the sporting world, there's no such thing as innovation. It's the biggest crock of BS that there is. Now, South Africa were in the way that they attacked the cycle by not really caring too much or seeming to care too much outside of the World Cup year. And so now everyone's going to try and follow on from that and then not actually set their own standards, saying, no, stuff this, we're going to win every test and win a World Cup. So everyone just is kind of following suit. Because the Springboks didn't have the greatest record outside of a World Cup, but they've won 2 World Cups. Everyone's like, oh, well, that's it now.
Yeah, that's genius. Brilliant.
Let's just not care about all the tests. And then they'll go ahead and do that and go, oh, but we didn't win the World Cup.
I don't know. Just the roads of brand, which leads to topic number 3. Do you accept the All Blacks losing? Are you happy that they lose? You just think it's part of being an All Black fan now, and that's the team. They're going to lose 2 or 3 test matches every year from now on.
No. I don't accept
because it's been 5 years
but
of that.
I'm realistic. Because this isn't a good team.
No, we know that.
We've said this and thought this for 2 or 3 years now. So I'm not sitting here acting like we should be beating South Africa. Now, both tests were there for the taking, I keep saying, but I'm not going to lose my mind because I don't think we're a good team. I have recalibrated my expectations. I think everyone needs to.
The thing is, the All Blacks never really get thumped in Test rugby. We did at Twickers last year where we got belted. We did in the semi-final against England, which was an embarrassing loss. But most of the time when we lose, we are in the game. We are in a position to win the game, even against Argentina in Wellington.
I can think of 4 tests off the top of my head since 2018 when we have not been in the game.
Oh, okay.
I can think of 4.
I might have lost that one then. I don't even want to know about them, mate, because it's just going to make me more mad about the fact we're losing.
I'd be happy to tell you.
Tyreek Hill. Yeah.
You gotta be careful with this one.
Yeah, they're trying their very best to blame the constabulary on this. He was driving through the car park on his way to the stadium. This is a superstar NFL player for the Miami Dolphins. He got pulled over by the police. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt, some other driving infraction. He apparently wound
speeding.
Speeding in a car park.
Apparently, according to the Twitter sphere, he was going 120 in a 40 zone. I don't know how true that is, but that's the rumour.
Anyway, he winds his window up. He doesn't play ball, doesn't cooperate. They get him out. They put handcuffs on him. Yeah, it looks to me, I mean, it could be a bit of a Scotty Scheffler that they overreacted here.
Yeah, well, they probably got a little bit too... I've watched little bits of the body cam footage, and for the bits I've seen, they're asking him to do a couple of things, and Tyreek Hill's not cooperating.
No, he's just refusing. He's what happens is, and just, I've got a lot of friends who are police. The first thing is the attitude test. If you give them attitude and grief, you've got to remember that's what they get all day, all their lives, all their careers, is people being a-holes to them.
Yeah.
They're used to confrontation. So if you're going to give that, you're going to get it back. If they're stopping you, and for whatever reason, it's an inconvenience, that's all it is to you.
A state of mind that cops need to be in as well is, my dad was a police officer, more so in the US than New Zealand, is you've got to assume the worst about the person you're pulling over.
Especially
or who
in America.
Yeah, who you're interacting
Absolutely.
with.
I mean, in America, there's a good chance that person's got a firearm.
Well, look what happened to that police officer in Massey a couple of years ago. There was just a random cop stop and he just got shot.
Yeah, look.
And he died.
Look, and I haven't always had this attitude. I was a bit of an angry young man when it came to the police in my teens and early 20s and things. But, as you get older, I just think, say hello, smile. And if they pulled you over and they've got it wrong, guess what? They've just got it wrong. That's all.
Yeah.
Have a nice day and move on.
It seems that the police officers that interacted with him were a little bit extreme. But
like they were with Scheffler.
Here's the thing. If you haven't done anything wrong and you just cooperate and you're easy to deal with, you're going to avoid any unfortunate situations, and he did it. He did his best to aggravate it, I think, Tyreek Hill.
White Ferns, congratulations to the selectors. Same team. This is absolutely brilliant. I can't wait for all the platitudes. This on the text from Divine, explaining the lessons learned, expressing themselves, having smiles on their faces, and the culture's great as they go to the T20 World Cup. Good on you, New Zealand cricket. This is the best news I've heard all day. That team has lost 8 matches in a row. Shameful. They're the most losing team in New Zealand sport at the moment on an international level. Pick all the same players and send them to the T20 World Cup. What a carpet ride it is to be a White Fern, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking at the release here. I don't think there's any big change.
What a carpet ride. You get paid a minimum of $120,000 a year. That's a minimum. You get business class travel. You live in a 5-star hotel wherever you go because that's what the men got, so they have to get the same thing on their contracts. There are no consequences at all to losing.
I'll tell you what the headline...
None at all.
The headline on this story, Devine and Bates set for 9th consecutive T20 World Cup. Experienced duo. They've featured in every edition of the women's event since its inception.
Well, those two are good, but what about the rest of you numpties? Clubbies.
Well, Susie Bates, her performances have been dropping. She's getting older.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add her to that list, but the rest, please. Really? You call yourself international athletes?
Oh, no, we've got a tour to Australia coming up. Oh, no.
LBP with TMG, that's Twisel's Matt Gunn. He's a Bulldogs fan, a lifelong Bulldogs fan, and the news overnight that, get this, Josh Addo-Carr. There he was at the team hotel. He wasn't going to play the game on the weekend, but there he was at the team hotel. And unbeknown to management and anyone else, he slips out the back jack to make a new plan stand. He gets in his car and goes to get a phone charger from somewhere. Because hotel reception doesn't have one. And all of the players and all of the management, there's no way that anyone's got a phone charger that connects his phone into the power socket so he could recharge it. So he's out looking for a phone charger when he gets pulled over by the cops. And he blows the breathalyzer and he tests positive for cocaine. And then he tells Phil Gould, no, that's not how it happened at all. They got it wrong. And I did the second 10, I just drove off. And it's all the media's fault. I'm with Josh Addo-Carr as I am with every NRL player that ever gets in trouble, Matt Gunn. Addo-Carr is innocent.
Well, according to him, he was, although Phil Gould says he may have been a little bit confused about the way the situation played out. Now, listen, I've never been involved in a roadside drug test, but what I don't think would be confusing is when you swipe the thing down your tongue and they say, "It's positive, Josh. Now we need a secondary test."
See,
well, I don't know how you misinterpret it.
See, that to me is... The other thing which confuses me is that Josh isn't playing. Josh is at the team hotel. He doesn't tell anyone he's leaving the team hotel. He leaves the team hotel in his car to go get a phone charger. I would have thought that maybe reception might have been able to help him out with that, maybe a dairy down the road, or perhaps he was actually going for more nefarious purposes. You see, this is the problem that these guys have, isn't it? They don't think about what their lies are, and then they start sort of just trapping themselves in corners with so many of them all of a sudden to have to re-explain.
Yeah. Look, in this household, we have 2 types of phones. So there's 2 different connections for the charger. But you've got an Apple and you've got the Android.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty simple,
between the 3 of us, we can normally put together a charger operation. So I find it very difficult to understand how one of the teammates also didn't have a charger, or as you say, someone at reception. Look, I mean, it doesn't look good for Josh Addo-Carr. Phil Gould has come out and said, look, he's spoken to the police, and he had to sit down with Josh and his manager to just reassess the situation. After, of course, Phil at Addo-Carr's first word hit social media saying this is a blow-up, there's nothing in it, he'll be innocent. Well, he's not saying so much anymore. And look, the Dogs apparently are discussing whether or not they step him down for this week's game. I can't imagine how he'd be on the field under any circumstances. But after such a fantastic year and pretty much an incident-free year, well, apart from the Bulldogs fans bashing the Canberra mascot out the stadium there a couple of months ago, it's been a pretty clean run for us. And they had their awards night on Monday. maybe Josh wasn't allowed to show up with his gifts for the boys. I'm not sure, Marty, but
well, see, this is the great thing about rugby league, mate, is that it seems week or weekend, it reminds you that it's rugby league, mate. And the people that are playing it and the people that follow, look, it's no surprise to anyone. And I react with amusement about this now because when these incidents happen, and none of them are funny, but I mean, drug charges and the continuous domestic abuse charges, whatever it is, it's just inevitable. It's never going away, rugby league. This is who your sport is and who plays it and who follows. This is just what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's spending a few weeks in Australia recently and reading plenty of the news. It's the most popular drug in Australia at the moment, cocaine. So whoever's involved, I'm not surprised. This doesn't really surprise me. I mean, the timing of it could not be worse. And of course, I wish it was from the Penrith Panthers or Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
But it's not, mate. But it's not. And so it is what it is. He's missed a fair bit of the season. We will miss him if he doesn't get to play because he's an explosive player. He's the kind of guy that can make a break and can't be run down.
Well, this is the whole point, though, Matt. From now on and every time, I mean, there's just a rolling stock of jokes, isn't it? As he's speeding down the sideline. Look, he looks as though he's off to see his drug dealer. He's running. Haven't seen him that fast since he was running from the cops.
You can't stop him when he sees the white line, mate.
See, this is positive. Look, we've turned it into a positive.
It is a positive. We made some humour out of it. No, I don't know what else you can do about it. But, I mean, as we look forward to the playoffs, we've got a couple of very strong teams in the Panthers and the Melbourne Storm. And then there's 6 other teams who I suppose on their day could upset each other. The question is can they bring it together and beat the Storm or Penrith, which probably, fairly likely will look like what the grand final is. Roosters have got a lot of issues with injury and suspension. The Sharks looking pretty good. I was surprised the Knights made the top 8, but Ponga got them home and they'll play the Cowboys and then the Doggies and the Sea Eagles on Sunday. Look, Lachlan was just throwing stats at me left and right. I was a little bit dejected today after the way our season has finished, but he assures me that you can lose 4 or 5 or 6 of your last 7 or 8 games in the NRL and still win the premiership.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
So being positive, I'm not overly positive, but I'm more positive than when I spoke to Lachlan a few moments ago.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. NFL season is back. If you love the NFL, well, this is what a time of year this is. If you got a team, find a reason to find a team, and then you'll love this competition. It is like an FA Cup final every week. You win a game, and honestly, you think you're going to the Super Bowl. You support the Commanders, and you don't ever win games. But for most people who support most teams, it was a fantastic opening round, and especially for our man HK Wong, Wong, at FB Garbage Time. His Bears, impressive. Let's run his expert eye over what happened in round 1. Your Bears, with Caleb Williams, you're down 17-0. You came roaring back, 2 tutties and a couple of intercepts. You're happy with the rookie on debut?
Absolutely not. But you know what? The thing is that you can't judge on one game, but it was absolutely a subpar performance. That being said, he is only the first overall drafted rookie quarterback to win his first start in week 1. No, there's only 3 others that done that, so including such names as Jim Plunkett and so on, and John Elway. So, it's hard to judge on one game. He looked lost. He hung onto the ball too long. He had some numbskull type situations where he tried to run away from the defense instead of tossing the ball away. It was entirely special teams and defense that won that game. And 17-0, we scored 24 straight points starting from the end of the second quarter. And like I said, it was almost entirely defense and special teams. Can't be happy about the offense, and Roma Dunze walks away with an injury as well. So not great on the offense, but defense, I couldn't be happier, Marty. I couldn't be happier about our defense. But, you need an offense to win games, so we'll see.
What was the biggest surprise to you? The Vikings beating the Giants or the Patriots beating the Bengals?
Oh, definitely the Patriots beating the Bengals. Okay. The Patriots are the NFL equivalent of like flaming hot garbage. Okay, I mean they are in the midst of the worst rebuild ever, and they have the worst possible skill players ever, and they put together the best absolute plan to win, and that is feed Ramondre Stevenson until his legs fall off, and that worked. That absolutely worked. And you want to know why? It worked because the Cincinnati Bengals were all discombobulated. They were not playing as a team. They had left running lanes open all over the place, and on offense, it looked like Joe Burrow didn't know what a football was. I mean, it was absolutely disgusting. Now, part of it is Jamar Chase being rusty because he's kind of trying to get that new contract, and he didn't go to much of camp, if anything. Basically tossed the ball a little bit, said he stayed in football shape, but you got to be more than football shape to catch passes and run routes, Marty. You got to be at camp, and he wasn't there. And then T. Higgins with the injury, they got him out of the game. That caused them all sorts of problems there, and I think that was the biggest upset of the weekend. And I can tell you that here in the States, we have, what's called survivor pools, where you get to pick one team every week, and you can only pick that team for the entire season. According to Yahoo, 46% of people picked the Bengals as their survivor pick in week one. That means 46% of the people in the U.S. who are playing this game are gone. They're out. They are no more. They did not survive. So this is the biggest surprise that I saw all weekend. And I don't think this is something they can sustain in New England, but hats off to them for having a great game plan.
Ooh, who was the most impressive NFC side? The Eagles, who beat the Packers 34-29, or the Cowboys, who dished it to the Browns in Cleveland?
It was absolutely the Cowboys, because the Cowboys did it from all angles. I mean, it was one of those things where you didn't know what was going to happen, but they just managed to sign a huge, huge contract to keep Dak Prescott there now, along with the huge contract they did with CeeDee Lamb. I mean, they got production from everywhere on Sunday, right? Dak Prescott threw for 156 yards in the first half. And then he had the defense being dominant of the Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Eric Kendricks, recording each of them recording sacks. Kendricks also had his first interception since 2016. Kevontae Turpin, the guy who actually they got from UFSL last year, actually added a punt return for a touchdown in the third quarter. I mean, they were getting production all over the board, Marty. That is a complete team effort. It wasn't relying on any single player. The Dallas Cowboys definitely the strongest looking NFC team this weekend.
HK Wong, Hakung Wong at FB Garbage Time. His Twitter handle is podcast. I urge you to support that. And this show brought to you iOS by One New Zealand. Let us get connected. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of other names. The Bills versus the Cardinals, were they impressive or not? The Dolphins sneaking over the Jaguars. Two teams, again, the same division, and both expected to make the playoffs. Those two.
Yeah, so I would say that the Bills Cardinals was the most interesting to me because of the fact that we had a lot of questions as to what Josh Allen would be. I mean, we all thought, listen, this is the guy who had every opportunity to win with Stephon Diggs, with Gabe Davis, with all these other players out there, and he didn't do it. And now they have a whole bunch of nobodies out there that he's throwing passes to. And guess what? Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things. 232 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, and he also ran in 2 touchdowns. He was El Fuego, and he didn't need anybody to help him get there. Now, it was the Cardinals that was interesting in this particular game to me, though, because they were in control of that game until the very end. And Kyler Murray looked rusty, and that makes sense because he had a lot of injuries. They kept him out of play for most of last year. And the biggest surprise of everything, Marvin Harrison Jr., the number 1 wide receiver drafted in this year's draft, 4 targets, 1 reception, 4 yards. That's criminal. They should take Kyler Murray and put him in handcuffs and send him to jail right now. You target your first round draft pick more than 4 times, particularly when you're down in the fourth quarter. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. If that's a coaching issue, fire the coaches. If that's a Kyler Murray thing, throw him in jail. That is criminal. Cardinals should have found a way to come back against the Bills.
Let's finish with Tom Brady, and Tom Brady paid $375 million for a 10-year contract to go on Fox Sports. And after his opening day effort, if he was a quarterback, his rating would be what?
I would say a C-. There
you go.
Okay. I'd say a C-. Like, it wasn't horrible, but there wasn't a whole lot of personality, and he wasn't a great announcer. I mean, listen, everyone's got growing pains. Tony Romo wasn't amazing when he first started, although he was probably leagues better, probably at least a B+ in his first outing there. Tom Brady's got a lot to learn. I mean, he's not the GOAT when it comes to announcing. We all know that. And he's got to be able to interact better and be better at color commentating. That's, it's one of those things where it's just going to be growing pains. I was as excited as anybody, even though I hated Tom Brady when he was playing. I like him now that he's retired because he's not beating up on any teams that I care about. But he just was not the GOAT when it comes to the broadcast booth. That's for sure.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform. It's only sport with Martin Devlin on The Platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.